Alright, our next presentation will be from Cleo Harris with the Michigan DNR, co-chair of the Habitat Task Group, and he's going to give us an update on the Habitat projects and assessment from the Habitat Task Group.
Thank you for that introduction, and thanks everybody. For the Habitat Task Group, we have all of our task groups, we have a lot of representation from the different agencies. So quickly to just kind of showcase the members, folks from Michigan, Ontario, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and then our federal partners as well with Fish and Wildlife Service, USGS, and NOAA. So a decent number of people. So today I'm going to talk quickly about our priority management areas and then get into some project highlights. Rounding out our task group stuff, this is more just providing some highlights. If you want to get into some more details, please go see our report, and I'll share that at the end as well. But to start off with our priority management areas, and just high level, what are our priority management areas? Like, what do I mean by that? So we, back in 2019, we rolled these out, and it's pretty much a breakdown of the fish species and the fish community objectives, where we looked at the various life stages for those species, what critical components that are there for them, what impediments we have for those critical components, and then what remediation actions can we take to address those critical components. We took a huge laundry list of that, and then added in some scoring to help us prioritize this for the species as well as where those remediation actions could occur. It gives us a nice list of scoring to rank these things out, so we're able to develop a prioritized list of those actions and where they're at that we could then provide to the Lake Erie Committee, and they could look at what we identified from the score as the very high and high priorities, and then select what they identified as the priority management areas for habitat actions to occur. So actually, that's one more thing there is, like I said, in 2019 we rolled this out. We've been working to refine that and continue that. We've built GIS layers and taking some different steps. And our most recent step that we're going to take is this hotspot analysis that we began in 2024. And this is some work that Sylvia Avanova from the University of Windsor had already done on Lake Ontario, and so we're going to try to bounce off of that and do that work, some of that work on Lake Erie. And this is with support from not just the Habitat Task Group members, but also Michigan State, Scott, and then DFO as well. So what do I mean for hotspot analysis is, a lot of you probably have seen the Great Lakes Acoustic Telemetry Observation System presentations in the past where we have tagged fish go swimming around the lake being detected by these receivers. And so the idea will be to take those results from those telemetry studies that have been done for years on Lake Erie, take that information and what species we are able to use, and then couple that with some of the environmental components like bathymetry, substrate data, even chlorophyll A, things like that. Again, working from what Sylvia was able to do in Lake Ontario, and put these into species distribution models, and then kick that out so we can kick species probability of presence information out on the back end that we can then start to layer up and identify biodiversity hotspots when we start building these together. And just to show you an example of what that kind of looks like, this is again from Lake Ontario, just to showcase this, but on the top map is a species presence probability map, and so I think that one's for brown trout, but so you do that for multiple species, and in Lake Ontario they did 19 species. We're still working on what that list is going to look like for Lake Erie, but they layered all of those together, and then the bottom map is that hotspot, or the biodiversity hotspot map that you can then create from it. And for Lake Ontario, they're able to kind of separate that out into nearshore species as well as offshore species. So this is a big step that we're working on. Still have to work out some funding things, but they're able to get this process started, so hopefully we'll have some more to report on this next year. With that, I'll move into some project highlights, and we'll start with some habitat assessments. That's a lot of what we're reporting this year, and the first one is this Great Lakes Coastal Wetland Conservation Framework. And so this is being led by the Great Lakes Coastal Assembly, and what they're pretty much doing is This is an effort that's going to be going on across the whole Great Lakes Basin, but Lake Erie gets to be the pilot. Lake Erie gets to be the pilot for a lot of things because we have a lot of data being collected, as you're seeing through this presentation. So this group is working to identify the what are coastal wetlands, like where we have coastal wetlands now, how much space we have, area that's covering, and then what's the condition of those coastal wetlands across the whole basin. So where are we at now? And then also working with a steering team, we're working to develop like what should to make improvement, show that we're moving the needle. What should we shoot for? What should our targets be? In the future, for after we are protecting what's already there, restoring and enhancing our existing wetlands or wetlands that historically were there. So as part of that, trying to get to that, like what that extent should be in the future. This group's also developing a prioritization tool that managers could then use to then bring in to go look at, like in my area, where should I focus? If I have money to focus on coastal wetlands, where should I focus that money? And really neat to go with our priority management areas, take that coastal wetland priorities, take our fish community objectives priorities from the priority management areas and start overlaying that, and helps us kind of bring our fisheries perspectives into wetland projects as well, and helps us identify some additional priority spots, which can feed into and help us refine the priority management areas as well. Some additional assessments. We have habitat suitability mapping going on around the basin. And what this is, if you're not familiar with it, pretty much, for a few of our key species, we have some things, metrics identified that are preferable or needed for like spawning or young of year habitat and things like that. So it's looking at things like substrate, water depth, water velocity, and then dumping this into a model, which is the habitat suitability index models. And it gives us kind of an estimate, like helps us get an estimate of how much of that habitat is actually available. And to give you an example of this, is from the Cuyahoga River. This work was already done. So this is, you're seeing the amount of habitat available, so total area, which is on the y-axis, and then at different various discharges on the x-axis. So as the spring, like when lake sturgeon are spawning, it's going to have variable levels of discharge coming down the river. So how much of that habitat's there. And what you can see from the habitat suitability index is, we have some ranked out good, moderate, and poor, some decent amount of spawning habitat for adults, and like that bottom line is like the minimum amount of area we need for successful reproduction of lake sturgeon in the Cuyahoga River. That's kind of what the estimate was. So we're above that, so there is enough habitat in there. And then after the spawning occurs, do we have enough habitat for the age 0 or young of year fish? And as you can see on the left-hand side of that graph, there is a decent amount for age 0 too. And so the nice part about these models, the information we get from that, understanding that area, leads then to management decisions like stocking lake sturgeon, which began in the Cuyahoga River last year. To go along with that, and to kind of help address some of the uncertainties that go into those models, Fish and Wildlife Service developed this ground truther, which is an R package script that they put together to help kind of, there's uncertainty as you're doing side scan sonar to collect some of this information. So to understand how those categorizations come off, for this is showing substrate. So like, our bedrock all the way through to silt and clay, like how does that, what does that look like for those estimates, and how close are we? And again, it's just kind of helping us identify what that uncertainty is in the habitat suitability index model. So it helps us understand those bounds around those points in the previous chart that I showed you. So still some habitat assessments. Moving on to out into the lake a little bit more. This is at the Niagara Reef. Some work that's being done out there in the West Basin, and some work that started in December, looking at the influence of cover on reef hydrodynamics. So what are the hydrodynamics like when we do have good ice cover? And fortunately, we had some really good ice cover this year. So they started this in December, put these monitoring stations that you can see in the upper left-hand corner, and in the rendering you can see what that looks like. So those are deployed around, I think they had 3 stations deployed around the Niagara Reef, and that's, those monitoring stations are, part of it's using Doppler, but they're also they're collecting water movement, light, turbidity, temperature, different things like that, to help us better understand the environment around those reefs as fish are spawning, eggs are hatching, things like that. So through the ice, under the ice, and then they're continuing that into the spring through the walleye spawning season. Another reef project that's been going on, it's about 3 miles east of Fairport on the southern shore of the lake, and this is the Hardy Point Reef project. So this is first investigated in 2011 by the Ohio DNR, and they're continuing to look at this now, and they're going to be doing some side scan sonar work. That's or they already did some side scan sonar work. They're going to be ground truthing that this year. And like similar to what I was talking about for the Habitat Suitability Index, using that side scan sonar work helps us kind of determine what types of substrates are there around the reef and on the reef, so we can understand that heterogeneity of the substrates. And so this year they're going to continue doing some work out there, looking at doing some ground truthing for those substrates. So on in the field looks, as well as doing some early life history work for walleye, electrofishing egg mats, and things like that. In addition to that work that's going on this year, they're going to use this effort to refine their techniques to then go and look at some additional reefs along the southern shore. So move a little bit out of habitat assessments into an actual habitat project that's going on. And this is going to be the gorge dam removal on the Cuyahoga River. And so this dam was really old, 1913, identified as a critical piece for the delisting for the area of concern in the Cuyahoga. A large part of that is due to water quality issues and the contaminated sediments behind it. And it's very large dam, so completely stopping fish passage, and hopefully with the removal of this we'll have fish passage that goes up even further beyond. So just kind of hit some of those the benefits of this removal will be increased water quality, increased recreation in the Cuyahoga, gain about 18 river kilometers of opening up the river itself, and then behind it the dam is actually the Great Falls. So you can see in this picture, so this is completely underwater. You can't see it now, but this will be exposed once the dam is removed. So there is still some questions about we say 18 river kilometers, but there are some questions about what fish will be able to pass those Great Falls. And our federal partners are doing some telemetry studies out there. They've already begun that work, and they'll continue that once the dam's removed, to look at how fish are moving in the river and if they're able to get past that point. So, like many dam removals, this takes a bit of time to pull these off. Feasibility started in 2015, and last year the sediment dredging was supposed to start behind the dam. Actually, it wasn't able to begin, so that's now planned for this year, kind of just pushing that time frame out a little bit more. But things are continuing to progress there, and hopefully that'll come out soon. And that was a very quick run through, and I won't waste your time any more time on the Habitat project, but we do have a lot more projects in our Habitat Task Group report. So if you have any further interest there, please check that out. It should be up on the Great Lakes Fish Commission website here very soon. And if you have any questions, my email's up there. Feel free to reach out, and have plenty of time for questions.
Thank you, Cleo. Do we have any questions for Cleo in the Habitat Task Group?